Welcome back. This is part 2 of Jono Dunnett's adventure. Jono tells us more about his Japan experience with the seas, the language, why he documents the journey, and how the community helps him accomplish his goals. So onwards to today's episode. Can you tell me about the different challenges about Japan? How does that compare with Britain and Europe?
Okay, so Japan, obviously it's got a long Pacific coast, and the big ocean swells are always going to be a challenge, but I kind of successfully managed to kind of not pay too much attention to that. I had a friend who lives in Japan down near where I started. And he's an extremely optimistic character. And I said, so what are the waves like where you live? And he said, they're nothing, and nothing. And he said, and where we live picks up all the swell. And I kind of, naively believed him, or chose to believe him.
Right. And the reality?
Yeah, the reality is that so he's actually a bit more sheltered than he realizes, or than he told me.
Okay.
So it's been difficult. The first bit especially, because it's very ocean facing, and it's also very industrial. So the Tokyo region, lots of enormous ports to get past.
Right.
And ports are particularly horrible because the sea state. The waves, swells bounce against whatever bit of concrete or, however they're constructed. And they force you offshore, they reflect the sea state, and they're enormous, and they go on for a long time.
Wow.
So they're challenging to get past. There's one early day that kind of, I just went too far. It was a mistake. I should have stopped, but I kept on going. And then I started to run out of wind, and one of these massive ports, I ended up going around in as dark as I've been out in, and that was a risky one that could have gone wrong. So I've been a bit more cautious after that. Right. So I've probably been making slightly less distance than I have done on previous journeys, but I've been trying to keep it a bit safer. And obviously culturally it's different. And I definitely underestimated how kind of lost I would be. I'm fine. I've been going for 5 weeks, and I kind of understand how things work. But so I started off extremely lost, not able to kind of even find where to get food and things like that.
So some of it is language barrier, some of it is cultural barrier, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, and the language barrier is bigger than I expected, because I was expecting, in Europe, most people speak a little bit of English.
That's right.
But in Japan, no, not at all. People. I actually speak more Japanese than most people speak English, and that's not saying much.
Probably the big centers, but you're going along the coast and all these little ports.
Yeah. So so Tokyo was built. Air region, Ibaraki region was very industrial, very built up, but since then, since I got north of Sendai, it's been incredibly wild and depopulated and open, and it's just like the polar opposite of what you imagine.
Right.
Japanese sort of Tokyo city life. It's people living very kind of a lot of fishing, a lot of kelp farming.
So very simple living.
Very simple living. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you've written books about England and of course European journey. I'm assuming you'll write one about Japan, but generally, what made you want to write books and share your adventure?
I felt so much kind of gratitude for everyone I met on these journeys, because I've met hundreds and hundreds of people. I've experienced so much kindness, so much help along the way. So there's several reasons. One reason is that I wanted to sort of repay what I felt was a kind of debt, to tell the story and share it.
Right.
Also, so much happened, and so much happens that it happened so quickly. Like bam, 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 every day. It was like every week was a month and every month was a year lived
Right.
in terms of experience.
Yeah, you're so living in the moment, right?
Yeah, but there's no time to properly think about things because the next thing is happening already. So there's also an opportunity to go back and properly live them in a way. You properly think about them and not just forget them.
Hmm.
Because I think if you don't kind of go back and remember what happened, then you will never remember what happened. Whereas having gone back and several times and about them and thought about them, they are there kind of forever now.
Right.
Yeah.
So, of course, you become obviously, and everybody in sailing, but probably you even more because you've gone to so many shores. You become a pretty strong advocate for climate change awareness. So, how does that windsurfing expedition shape your perspective on this issue? And that's, I think that's part of your message. It's a very big part of your message where you're doing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of complex reasons, but I'm not naturally inclined. I'm quite a shy person, and I have certainly had sort of some issues with social anxiety and things like that. So whilst I was doing the journey, I was not at all comfortable sharing stuff just for the sake of sharing, and I had to kind of have a reason and think, what's my motivation for doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And so it really helped me to think, okay, my reason is that I actually, I want to give a message that we've got this planet, and we need to look after it. And it's a very simple message.
Yes.
Keeping that in mind helped. That was what kind of kept me going a bit, really. There is actually a reason to this.
Yes.
Yeah, this is another joke. This is another joke I had.
That's
Sometimes when it did get me down a bit and I was tired, because I've been around so many headlands.
Mm-hmm.
I'd get to a headland and I'd ask myself, what's the point? Because I wouldn't know what headland it was, what the name was,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes I'd look it up and sometimes I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But a little joke I'd tell myself was, what's the point? And the point was, that the world is wonderful. It is. We have got to look after it, and we can use it all up. That was another thing of the Around Europe journey,
Mm-hmm.
is that, and the Around Britain journey, is that when you're small, you kind of have this assumption that everything is just goes on forever.
That's right.
And
that's not true.
But in fact, you can count every headland, you can count every river, every estuary, and if you screw them all up, there are none left.
Mm-hmm.
I think that message was the one I was trying to get across.
Yeah, I'll take. There's a quote that I love that I wrote, and I think a lot of people think, what's my impact? What can I do to help? Really, I really can't do much. And I think you have a quote that's really talks about, well, it says each of us is but a grain of sand, and yet each of us make a difference. So I love that, because that really talks about climate change and how people sometimes feel helpless about it, but in reality, we all can make a difference, right?
Yeah, and the point of that as well is that you can't know if you're going to make a difference. You can't know if you're going to be a grain of sand which makes a difference, but no one can know that. So everyone has to just have faith that you might be the grain of sand that inspires someone else to do something or to be a much greater communicator than I'll ever be. But you can do something that might be part of some chain that helps us get to a better place, and you just have to have faith in that and do what you can. So that's what I do.
Yeah, well, you think you're just a grain of sand, but you've done an amazing job, Jono, and I think you've inspired a lot of people. So you can see the people following on your site, in your books, the people that meet you. So I think that's continue doing that. Then that's.
Thank you.
No, thank you. So windsurfing and these trips, how's that shape your life now? You didn't expect that to become your life, but it's become your life, and your journey is now, right?
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
And your personal growth, right?
Yeah. It's completely opened up my life in a taking it in directions that I could never have imagined. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never ever imagined that I'd be doing this. In terms of the Japan journey, I just thought, well, I turned 50 this year, and I thought, and cruising by windsurfer is it's physically fairly demanding, and
Definitely.
I have to be careful I don't overdo it because I get tendonitis in my fingers, and there's going to come a point when I am a bit old for this cruising by windsurfer business, particularly on oceans anyway.
Right.
Yeah, I'd say the opportunity arose to. Yeah, there's actually a reader of the book who suggested Japan. He said should have a go at Japan, and then I had this happy coincidence with a friend. The friend living down in Onjuku near Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought the stars aligning too well to ignore. So yeah, I just tried to make it happen. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm fairly good at just being a bit sort of unconscious of the problems. So I guess I'm a kind of an optimist at heart as well. And
so what's next after Japan?
I really don't have any. I don't look that far ahead. I try to keep that as a kind of philosophy as well, because I think it's important that whatever you do, you try to do well, and that means focus on what you're doing rather than have your mind on what's coming next. So it's maybe lacking a bit of strategy there, but probably whatever plan you have for the future is going to be changed anyway, because it's so unpredictable in the end. So I'm going to focus on just trying to do this well, and then we'll see.
Right. What's the community support has been on your journey, and between that too? Has that been helping you complete this, and even after, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's several kind of aspects to this. I mean, in some ways, I've become as I've become more competent at this way of traveling.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually become less kind of. When I did round Britain and things, I really needed the support of people helping along the way and offering me a bed and things. And I've kind of, as my skills have become more developed, I've got more independent, which in some ways is a shame. That maybe there's not quite as much interaction with people along the way. But I think it's just it's a natural kind of evolution.
Right.
And the early parts of Japan, also, I was really deliberately trying to keep kind of low profile, because I was concerned about the Coast Guard coming along and saying you're not allowed to do this.
That's right.
So I was trying to keep a low profile. Now I've got a far enough distance to to clearly sort of demonstrate competence. I'm not worried about that at all now. So if I still haven't met the Coast Guard. But if I do see them, it won't be a problem.
You actually have. I'm a voluntary Coast Guard. Have anybody tried to or asked to do something similar, follow in your footsteps, or want to learn from you? Have you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I hear from people who are planning or going to have a go at similar things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and people doing smaller trips, and smaller trips are great.
Yes.
I really recommend people go for these smaller trips. Particularly, I mean, it's just so fantastic. Even just an overnight or a 2-night trip or something, you can have you can get places that you would never get to, and that other people never get to, and you get there so quietly and gently. Yeah, you have the most amazing experiences. So I'd recommend your listeners to do to
have a go at this.
With the windsurfer or an SUP, just sort of.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many. There are so many lovely places to go and explore and be peaceful in nature. Yeah, but occasionally people get in contact who are planning on some bigger adventures as well. In fact, I was talking a few days ago to some guys who are plotting a first wingsurf round wingfoil around the UK. So good luck to those guys. Hope they make it. It's a good trip.
You're an inspiration, Jono. Thank you so much for calling. You really are. So really,
But
It's been
yeah, but I love your podcast and the where it starts from, this sort of nano cruising perspective. I love it. Yeah, I don't know if I told you I did a trip a couple of years ago. I did round Ireland in a laser dinghy as well. So I've
There
also
you go.
done a little bit of small boat cruising.
yes.
And whatever the craft, it's fantastic. It's just such a great way to see the coast, and the seamanship aspect. I just love it as well, and how it is the same as the seamanship of 100, 200 years ago. With the small boats then as well.
Correct.
I love it.
What a great story. In our next episode, we'll talk to Bruce from Australia, who sailed his little boat out to the Barrier Reefs. This should be very interesting. I want to thank you again for joining us today. Feel free to join us on our Facebook group, Nano Cruising. Visit our website, nanocruising.com. Join our mailing list to not miss any episode. And don't forget, seize your own adventure.